welcome to Just Break Up, the podcast about love, heartbreak, and all the relationship advice you don't want to hear. My name is Sierra DeMulder.
And I'm Sam Blackwell. And today we're going to answer a letter from somebody who is feeling shame over his role in breaking up his partner's marriage. But before we begin,
They haven't broken up yet. They haven't broken up yet.
Spoilers. We're not. Stop it. But before we begin,
way too much energy for this episode.
Yeah, apparently. Before we begin, we just want to give you our Surgeon General's warning, which is that Sierra and I are not licensed mental health practitioners.
No, we are not professionals. We are not trained in any of this. So please take our advice as you see fit. We're only here to offer our humble musings to hopefully shed some understanding and maybe some laughs about the incredibly rewarding, but mostly confusing experience that is love. Emphasis on the confusing for this upcoming letter.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. There's some things that are unclear in this upcoming letter. All right, let's get into our check-in topic because it's Monday. So our check-in topic today comes from a letter by Help LOL, whose pronouns are she, her, who is writing from Trauma Pending, which is a sad place to be. It's really short, so I'm just going to read it. I think you have talked about this a bit before, and this is more of a check-in topic, but what advice would you give for preparing for heartbreak? I'm going to end things with my partner of 2+ years, and while I know it's the best thing for me, I'm also devastated. Do you have any words of wisdom for entering the mourning phase? Sending love to you both, XX.
Wow. I'm sorry that you have come to this crossroads, and also I'm really proud of you for doing all that really difficult and uncomfortable yet empowering work to make this decision.
Absolutely. Great job writing into two people who have never actually broken up with anyone before.
I have. It was just like a slow burn over the course of 3 years. Okay, so here's my advice. I thought we could just like volley some thoughts back and forth. And you know, you sound really sure. So I'm sure you've done all of your due diligence. But I do think my very first piece of advice is for the actual event itself, if it hasn't already happened, is, you know, prepare a mental or even physical script for what you want to say, for what you're sure of, and be prepared that there's going to potentially be some attempted bargaining. There's going to be big emotions, and it's okay for those things to come up and for you to stand firm in what you know to be true, right? This is really hurting me. I know it is. And also I'm still leaving you or whatever. I mean, that literally makes me like nauseous to say that out loud, but it's true, right? I feel like so many breakups get extended and become even more painful because of the bargaining that starts happening, the emotional badminton that happens, the back and forth, when some of that could be avoided if we just like stood firm in our truth, right? And we're ready for that sort of like, you know, think of yourself as like, this is terrible. I'm starting this episode off with terrible metaphors, but like you're a cliff, right? And waves of emotion are going to come over you from yourself and from other people, but you have to stand firm in what you know to be true, to be the best thing for both of you, despite the pain that it's causing. I'm just going to leave it at that because I just could dig myself into a fucking hole with those metaphors.
Yep. I think my advice, you know, and I'm thinking like during the breakup, and then I have some ideas around like how to manage after the breakup. But I think my advice is really similar, which is, you know, I learned this lesson when I was young and had to go through a period of where I had to give really hard news to people. That like I was working a job and it meant that like people were going to be laid off and like it was a really bad situation. And one of the things that my boss told me as I was like preparing to have some of these calls was that like the person that you're talking to, this is the first time that they're hearing it, right? You have known this information for the last like couple weeks. They're hearing it for the first time today. And so they're going to have a lot of things to process through that you've already processed through. But that doesn't mean that you can expect them to be at the same place that you are, right? So you have to be prepared for the idea that they're going to want to ask questions. They're going to be surprised. They're going to be hurt by this in ways that maybe you were a couple weeks ago, right? you know that this is the best thing for you and for your relationship. That might be news to them, right? Like they might not be at the place where they can see that happening. And so I want you to be able to like hold space for empathy in how they're reacting and responding, while also recognizing that like they might need time to process away from you. And I think I would make it really clear that that is like something that you are expecting, right? Like I'm telling you this thing. And then if they start like going through the processing stuff, right? Like empathize. This is the first time that they're hearing it. They're surprised by this, while also being like, okay, and I need you to process that elsewhere, right? Like, and I can't be the one that you do this with.
Yes.
Which is just so hard.
It's so counterintuitive sometimes. I know, exactly. It is really hard.
I'm like I'm getting uncomfortable thinking about doing this like hard. Hypothetically.
Yeah, it's a bizarre middle ground, like, because you want to be ready to receive those emotions. And also you are not the right vessel for that processing. And that feels so counterintuitive to both parties at times. So post-event breakup, I think that my first piece of advice would be have literally like, I don't know, this might be of the event, but have a no contact or contact parameters in mind. Obviously, Sam and I are fans of taking space and time to intentionally do that processing without each other, right? This is the first step in figuring out what does your life look like uncoupled. Putting some space between you and that person, whether it's right after the breakup or after one or two processing sessions or whatever you all need, to be like, okay, and after this conversation, I need some space to start to heal, and you need some space to start to heal. So let's not talk for 3 months, or let's connect when we're starting to feel better, or whatever. Like, and again, like there's going to be maybe some conflict or big feelings about that, but I cannot stress how powerful that space is in sort of rewiring our understandings of our lives in direct opposition to that person, right? Like understanding that your days can go on without them, or understanding that you can have those big emotions and not reach out to them. And your brain starts to create new patterns, new pathways of connection. And I know this all sucks. We're giving like really direct tactile advice about a really painful human experience. It's not fun to say this stuff. And also, this is how we get through these really normal things,
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think as you're also like doing this processing, hopefully separately, it's also important to remember that it's really normal for you to experience lots of different conflicting emotions about this, even as the breaker-upper, right? Like even as the person who's doing the dumping, right? You can have regret, you can feel relieved, you can feel sad that they're not in your life, you can feel mad about the way that they handled all of this stuff, right? Like all of those things can be happening at the same time. And it's also really normal for you to just feel one emotion about it, right? Which could be relief or could be excitement, right? Like it's all okay. And I think a lot of the times when we're in these big life changes, right? We're surprised at the types or intensity or amount of emotions that come up for us. And I just want to remind you that like emotions are okay. They are normal. They are part of our processing. They are not something that is going to overwhelm or destroy you, right? Like these are things that are telling us that something about us, our experience is changing, right? There's something new that's happening here. And of course there's something new. You're embarking on a new life without this person. So I want to just like name that all those emotions are understandable, that they're normal, and that you have the capacity to be able to hold and process through them in ways that feel good for you or in ways that feel maybe not so good, right? Maybe a little bit crunchier. So just be prepared for emotions that may be unexpected and recognize that like whatever you're feeling is a normal and important way to be feeling. You don't need to follow a set script of what emotions you should be feeling when.
Yeah. My last piece of tangible advice is to put some plans on the horizon. It's not going to feel good necessarily right away, but it's really important for you to show your brain and your heart and your body that like life goes on and you go on with it, and it doesn't feel the same, but it starts to feel different and new and empowering in its own way. I received some bummer news recently, and immediately I was like, okay, I have to get myself to this next place, so I'm gonna plan this event or whatever. I'm gonna keep myself engaged in my day to day. Basically, I'm gonna give myself something to look forward to. And I also just want to say, similarly to Sam's last point, like rest in the fact that this is normal. Breakups devastate us, right? Breakups change our DNA, what it feels like, right? And also they're normal. They happen every day. They happen all around us. They're natural. They're painful. And also at the same time, these decisions are still justified, right? You are not a bad person for ending this relationship, even though it hurts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My third piece of tangible advice is do not start having sex with this person after your breakup. It's always a bad idea. It is always a bad idea. It feels good because it feels like dangerous.
Post-breakup sex. Oh my God. Yeah.
But it just...
And they're trying their best. Their A game is back.
100%. And you're like, oh my God, I want you, but I shouldn't have you. And it's just like everything that you would want. Yeah. It's a terrible idea. Don't do it. Suddenly you'll find yourself living with this person for 2 more years, and then everything was just going to go to shit. So... Don't go down that rabbit hole. It is just like it's not worth it. I'll tell you, it's not worth it.
So funny. That is so funny and so true. All right. Best of luck. We know this sucks, but it sucks in good company.
Absolutely. Good luck with this conversation and with the period that follows. Yeah.
All right, let's dive into today's letter. It is from Deluxe Lestrange or Lestrange. Whose pronouns are, Sam gave me the eyebrows on that one.
No, I was into it. I mostly is this a reference to something? Like I feel like I'm missing a joke. No,
I don't think so. Like Deluxe.
Great. It's a great drag name.
I know.
Deluxe Lestrange. Agree. Like I would be like, yes, queen.
Yeah. Okay. Whose pronouns are he, him, who is writing to us from Phoenix, Arizona. Dear Sam and Sierra, for the last 2 years, I, male, 33, have been in a loving and emotionally supportive relationship with my partner, female, 40. What started as a fling, something light and easy after my divorce, quickly escalated. We share a bond that can feel like it is meant to be, like we've been together in past lives and are meeting again on this life. We are great friends. We laugh a lot, share interests, and the sex is the best of my life. She has encouraged me to go to therapy and has supported my healing journey. The catch is she's married, and her husband is not explicitly aware of our sexual relationship. She sleeps at my house at least 3 nights a week. Even still, we deny sleeping together. I'm a family man at my core. I have a relationship with their 2 children, and in private, my partner and I talk about me being a, quote, bonus dad. I take them camping, go on vacation with the whole family, and the kids occasionally stay at my home with their mother. We've discussed many different polyamorous models, being honest with her husband, whether I would maintain a separate home or potentially move in. Husband has expressed that he is not open to polyamory, though, and it could break them up. We've even discussed marrying after the divorce. My partner tells me that I'm positively impacting her life, her kids' lives, and their relationship. Despite all of this, I feel icky about the whole situation. I'm a child of divorce myself, a major factor of which was my father's infidelity. Without going into too much detail, my mom dumped a lot of that trauma on me and my siblings. These are things I'm unpacking in my personal therapy journey. As my partner and I become more deeply entangled, my life becomes entwined with theirs, and I feel more ashamed of my role in breaking up their marriage. I can't imagine a version of their divorce and me moving that I'm comfortable with. I've tried breaking up multiple times and agreed to stay regardless. I love her and her kids, but the whole situation makes me feel ashamed of myself. Is love enough to sustain this relationship? Can I overcome my shame around the nature of our relationship to make it work? I'm in over my head and in need of advice.
All right, Deluxe. Thank you so much for writing to us. I'm sorry that you're feeling all of this shame about the way that your relationship is currently going. Shame is never a fun emotion to experience. It always evokes feelings of less than, of anxiety, of all sorts of things that are not super fun. And I can also recognize that this is a really tricky situation for you to be in. Sounds like you really love your partner. It sounds like her kids are really important to you, and that it feels like you kind of got yourself in over your head in ways that you haven't expected, in terms of how deep your feelings are for this person and how complicated this situation is, with the fact that she is currently still married to somebody who isn't aware of this relationship and is somebody who has said that they are not polyamorous and do not want a polyamorous relationship. So we're going to get into some musings and some advice about how you might move forward out of this particular situation that you're in. But before we do that, we're going to take a quick break.
All right, my darlings, welcome back. And to our letter writer, thank you so much for trusting us with this question. I can feel the conflict oozing from this letter. I can feel your inner turmoil. And I really appreciate you sharing your history and why this particularly is causing so much shame for you. It makes a lot of sense to me. It resonates with me. And so I'm going to speak super directly to you, because I feel like right now that's what would be most helpful for you from two strangers who are speaking from safely from behind a microphone. We don't know all of the details of this, but I feel like you are diving in to the nuance of everything, and you are emotionally connected to your partner. You're emotionally invested in their family and in their children. And also you feel this deep shame and complication over how this relationship is progressing and in what way. And so you're in it. And so I'm going to try to speak as directly as I can to you to try to shake some of the confusion. And the first direct thing I want to say is this is confusing to me. As an outsider, I feel like I'm missing something. And if I'm not, that's totally okay. I know you're just sending us a letter. But it feels very interesting to me that the husband doesn't know about the physical relationship, and that your partner and her children are sleeping over. I'm just, if anything, I am curious as to how that is happening in a way that is not making the husband insecure or suspicious. Do you know what I mean? And I only say that because I'm curious, and I'm wondering what conversations the husband and the wife are having on their own. That's confusing to me, how that is going down at all, sure. How this is existing at all. I'm confused about it. And the second really direct thing I'll say to you is you're having an icky feeling about this, because if the husband does in fact not know that you two have a physical relationship, then this isn't any form of polyamory. It is infidelity, right? This is what is happening, and that's the feeling you're getting. You're saying, man, I don't want to break up this family. I don't want to be a part of infidelity. And we're going to get in. I just want to, quick side note, infidelity happens, quote, breaking up the family is often not a bad thing. It does happen, I just want to say that really quickly, that we shouldn't keep families together that just aren't happy together. That's the worst trauma. And you're feeling icky about this because it sounds like that's what's happening. I'm confused as to how the husband is participating in this. What is being said to allow her to sleep at your house with their children? Are you besties, or does he? I don't know. I'm confused. Yeah. But the icky feeling you're feeling is because it's not polyamory. It's cheating.
Wow. Just explicitly said it. No, and I 100% agree, to be clear. I 100% agree. And And I also I want to name that specifically, and I appreciate that you did, because, I think that a lot of folks who are polyamorous, a lot of folks who are practicing ethical non-monogamy get kind of a bum rap about the idea that you can't be polyamorous without cheating, right? That's the only way that it can happen, right? That somebody's obviously going to get hurt because expectations aren't real. And what I think is so important about the polyamorous community, about people who practice ethical non-monogamy, is that actually what they're doing in lots of different ways is focusing on consent, focusing on establishing what are the edges and boundaries of our relationship before even engaging in anything that is outside of the realm. It's like thinking about folks in the kink community who are we start with consent, we start with safe words, we start with safety, right? All of these things that we then get to build on over time, and how so many folks have co-opted kink without the foundations of consent, without the foundations of safety and all of those important things that we're talking about, right? Those feelings of being valued and being important. And so I want to name that because I want to make sure, as we're thinking about what do polyamorous relationships look like and how could we come to one in our iteration, is that it's going to be 20 times harder to figure out what a polyamorous relationship with this husband could look like because y'all started without his consent, right? He is not in a polyamorous relationship with you, right? He is in a non-consensual affair that's happening right now.
I'm so curious because I'm wondering if in their conversations about polyamory, she is partnering with the letter writer, or is telling her husband that she's partnering with the letter writer in a non-sexual way. Maybe there's companionship here, there's intimacy here, but just not fit. I'm so curious because I feel like I'm missing something. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. But but you've made it clear that he's not explicitly aware of the fact that you two are sleeping together. Right. Which is not cool. I'm just going to say it. It's not cool. Right. And I think that's probably why these feelings of shame are coming up for you, is because, the way that you're practicing this relationship is hurting this man, right? It's hurting your husband because you are lying to him about what he is engaging in relationship with his wife, right? And so we've talked on the show about the difference between shame, the difference between embarrassment, or the different and guilt, right? And I don't want you to feel shame about this, which is that you're a bad person because of this. But I want you to use guilt in this as a way to decide how you want to move forward in order to repair, I think, some of the harm that you and your partner have caused this man by engaging in this practice without his consent, right? Without explicitly telling him. And I think that the first thing that needs to happen if you are going to move forward with whatever iteration of this relationship looks like is that you need to tell him about what, and you and your partner, right? I don't think this needs to be you specifically, but one or both of you needs to be really clear about what you want from this relationship, what has been going on in this relationship, and that where the edges and boundaries of what your relationship is going to look like, so that he can make some informed consent about how he wants to continue engaging with this relationship or not. Because it is painful to me to know that this person is engaging in relationship without having enough information to be able to meaningfully consent to what this relationship looks like, right? And that needs to change. That's the first thing that needs to happen here.
Yeah. And before you let that feed your little shame spiral, please know that Sam and I have 100% been in similar spaces.
Oh my God, yes.
And situations and relationships that we have been this person.
Cheater and
we have
cheatee.
made the same decisions.
100%.
And I also want to speak to your shame about breaking up a family. I just want you to know that the trauma you experienced in your relationship with your mother and your father's infidelity is not how the story always goes. And I know it feels like you're fulfilling a prophecy, that you're repeating a pattern or whatever, but the universe doesn't care that much about our choices to have it be some sort of karmic thing that's happening again. Yes, we do. We have patterns that we inherit from our parents, yada, yada. But I guess I just want to relieve yourself of the huge worldly shame of, quote, breaking up their family. You guys are all functioning adults, right? You're all agents of choice and change in this thing. And it wasn't just your father that broke up your family. It was a million choices, half of them chosen by your father. But there, I guess I'm losing my point here, but I don't want you to get stuck on this idea of breaking up a family or not breaking up a family. That happens. Divorce happens. Infidelity happens. And it looks like it's happening here. So how are you, a person with agency and autonomy, how are you going to find yourself in this situation? Where are your boundaries? Where are your morals? You ask in the letter, yep. Is love enough to sustain this relationship? No. But love is enough to keep you in a situation that you morally don't feel good in.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
Love is very powerful. Love keeps us in places we should have left long ago.
For sure.
And I am not saying there's not a future with this woman. I am not devaluing your connection to her. I believe everything you've said about her and your relationship. And also, you are here because you love her. You said it yourself. I have tried to break up multiple times, but I agreed to stay. I love her. I love her kids. But you're staying for that love. But you are ignoring your intuition. You are ignoring your sense of self, your morals.
For sure.
And I feel like you're doing it because you're caught in this love, and you're also caught in this idea of family, that you are fulfilling some sort of infidelity prophecy, and that like you're going to ruin their family. Yep. I want to take that off a pedestal a little bit and just talk about it. Like, you had a lot of trauma dumped on you as a child. That is real. And also, this is a part of life. Divorce is a part of life. Infidelity is a part of life. And I don't want you to remain actionless because you are afraid that this affair comes out and they break up their family. Those children are resilient, they are capable, and they are going to move through their own lives with their own downfalls, with their own struggles, and with their own triumphs. And if you're worried about the wholeness of their family, if you're worried about breaking up a family, then you need to let your morals speak larger and louder than your love. Yeah, you know this. Is love enough to sustain a relationship? Yeah, as is. Love is enough to keep you here in this middle ground that doesn't help you sleep at night, right? And another thing is, like, we stay in situations like this because we want so badly to get to the other side for all of this middle ground ickiness to be worth it, right? You're talking about getting married after the divorce. What divorce? She has to first tell her husband she doesn't want to be with him, right? So I feel like the sensitivity of this relationship is preventing you from accessing. This is why I'm speaking so directly to you, because it's preventing you from accessing the cold hard facts here. And the facts are, there's no relationship here. If you want to be with her, there's no foundation being laid right now that is not in deceit. And listen, I'm a child of divorce. I am pro-divorce, meaning, like, I think that is often a really healthy thing for people to do, right? Instead of staying in a marriage that's toxic or harming the children more together than they would separately. So I could see a world in which you could absolutely continue to build your life with this woman. But as is right now, something's got to change. right? And I don't want you to get caught up in this desire to, quote, not break up this family because it's happening, right? Because there are adults in this situation that are consenting and not consenting to the dynamics at play here. And you're one of them. You are consenting to this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is such a good point, because I think that the thing that can help us challenge shame in ourselves is by getting back into a place where we are living in alignment with our values and our morals, right? So that we can start to see ourselves, instead of somebody as like who's doing this terrible thing, saying like, okay, no, I'm capable of making decisions that are in alignment with what I know to be true about myself and what I know to be true about what I value and what I want in this world. And then once we're in that place, we can look back on some of our other stuff and start to say like, okay, well, what brought me there, right? Like we can look at ourselves with more empathy. And so I think, like Sierra said, it's important for you to get back into a place where you are living in relationship in alignment with your values, which is to say that things are consensual, right? That things are open and honest, that you're not sneaking around, that you're not telling people one thing but doing a different thing. And I think if you can get to that point, it's going to make it easier for you to then decide what you want to do. And so I think that Sierra and I are telling you this because we have faith that you can figure this out, right? Like we have faith that you can start to figure out what it looks like to do this in ways that are more in alignment with who you know yourself to be. And we want you to be there because we know that when we make decisions that are in alignment with our values, that we make decisions that are often better for us and better for the people around us. And that's really what we want for you in this particular situation.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And please know that there's literally no judgment over here from Sam and I. We have been there. We have done that. And we, most importantly, we understand the complex diversity of human connection and all of the ways in which we find it and all of the ways in which it confuses us and fulfills us. And I know this is just as good of a love as it is a confusing one. And that's what makes it so tricky. So please know that we have no judgment, and I don't want you to feel ashamed. I want you to feel empowered to act along your morals, to lay the foundation of a true future with someone. And if that means they open up their marriage, great, awesome. And also, we got to have all these participating, consenting adults on board for that, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, Deluxe, thank you so much for writing to us. We know that this is a really tricky situation that you're in, and we know that shame can kind of cause us to lose perspective of what we know to be true and what we want to be true of ourselves and others. So we hope that this offered a little bit of perspective. Thank you so much for writing. We love you.
We love you so much. We hope this helps.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. If you would like more content from us, or if you would like access to our monthly office hours, you can support us on Patreon. If you support us on Patreon for as little as $5 a month, you'll get an additional bonus weekly episode, as well as access to those monthly office hours. That's patreon.com/justbreakuppod.
You can slide into our DMs, send us your favorite relationship memes, but most importantly, you can submit your questions about all matters of the heart at justbreakuppod.com, which is also where you can find our merchandise.
Please remember to like, follow, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating and review. This literally keeps our mics on and helps us reach more brokenhearted souls who need two random strangers giving them relationship advice.
Just Break Up is a production of Duvid Media, original music, recording, editing, producing, all magical things by our good friend Spencer Worth Davis. Make sure to check out his podcast and his music. And remember, sometimes love keeps us in places which we shouldn't be in. Sometimes love is just as confusing as it is joyful. Take a minute, take a breath, connect to what matters to you, and make those hard decisions. And if all else fails,
just break up.